For years, the biggest questions in the Epstein case wasn't how he operated, or where he operated, or even who helped him. It was who he delivered, who he catered to, who he protected, by being the one who took the fall. And now, as portions of the client list and related documents begin to surface, the pattern is unmistakable. Epstein wasn't the center of the operation. He was the access point. When you look at the names, the confirmed ones, the alleged ones, the ones referenced in travel logs, civil suits, sworn depositions, and leaked communications, a picture forms that no government agency, no media outlet, and no spokesperson wants to explain. This wasn't a random assortment of men. This was a curated network of power. There were billionaires, there were global financiers, there were royal family members, there were politicians from both parties, there were actors, scientists, technologists, and people with enough influence to shape public perception for an entire generation. The first thing you need to notice, reading these documents, is how consistent the pattern is. The men in Epstein's orbit fell into three categories: the powerful, the protected, and the untouchable. Some of the names are expected, men who openly associated with Epstein for years. Some names are shocking, people the public never connected to him until now. And some names appear only in coded references, initials, or travel manifests, because someone made sure the full details never reached the actual surface. One of the most disturbing things about the client list is not who's on it, it's who is not on it, because several names the victims reported, prosecutors hinted at, or journalists chased were never formally included. Why? Because including them would have brought down the entire institution. You start to see why prosecutors and agencies went out of their way to keep these files sealed. If even a fraction of these connections were made public years ago, it wouldn't have just taken down individual men. It would have exposed how deeply Epstein's world was integrated into government, entertainment, finance, intelligence, and global diplomacy. The files show that Epstein wasn't moving quietly in the shadows. He was flying around the world with some of the most recognizable figures of the last 30 years. He was hosting them, connecting them, facilitating introductions, and creating an environment where boundaries didn't exist because consequences didn't exist. What makes this list so explosive is not that these men were powerful. It's that so many of them should have known better and probably did know better. These weren't naive, sheltered individuals. These were intelligent, connected, well-informed elites who understood exactly what kind of operation Epstein was running. Maybe not the entire scope, but enough. Because no one flies to a private island known for secrecy and walks away thinking, "I'm sure everything happening here is perfectly normal." And yet, for decades, nobody said a word. Not the visitors, not the companions, not the institutions that monitored international travel, not the agencies tasked with protecting human trafficking victims. That silence wasn't accidental. It was purchased, it was negotiated, it was protected. Look closely at the travelogues and court documents, and you start to see patterns of behavior. Men who visited repeatedly, men who stayed overnight, men who flew on Epstein's planes without ever appearing in official or public-facing schedules. Some of the most powerful people on the client list appear only in initials because the full versions were, of course, removed. Removed by who? That's the question. That scares people more than the names themselves. Because once you start erasing names from evidence, that's no longer a crime of one man. That's institutional protection. Here's another piece that people overlook. Several individuals who appear in the logs or in victim testimony magically disappeared from public life around the same time the investigations ramped up. They resigned, they relocated, they withdrew from business boards, they retired early, they dissolved companies, they scrubbed public profiles. You don't get that level of coordinated silence unless people know exactly what is at stake. The files reveal references to men who were too big to expose. High-ranking global figures where naming them could have triggered political fallout, international tension, or massive economic consequences. Ask yourself, what kind of world are we living in when the justice system actively protects the identities of alleged predators because of their job titles? That's this world. If a UPS driver was on an Epstein plane, his name would be public within an hour. If a senator was on the plane, suddenly we need more evidence, more context, more time, and more secrecy. That's the difference between ordinary justice and elite justice. One is swift, the other is shielded. What the client list really shows is this: Epstein wasn't the disease. He was the symptom. The rot was spread across politics, finance, and culture, and nobody wanted to disinfect it. And this is why the symptom protected him for so long. Not because of who he was, but because of who he could expose. You can feel the panic right now. Celebrities scrubbing old photos, politicians claiming they barely knew the man, royal families issuing carefully written statements, institutions distancing themselves, media outlets quietly deleting articles from the early 2000s. Everyone seems to know what's coming, and everyone is praying their name isn't in the next set of files. This is why the client list matters, not because it tells us who Epstein was serving, but because it tells us who America's most powerful institutions were protecting. And if this list is just the surface, imagine what's underneath. We'll go deeper into that in our next episode, where we break down the biggest protection of all, the plea deal, the cover-up, and the federal intervention that saved Epstein from a lifetime behind bars and saved his clients from ever being named. If you want to know more of this series, make sure you like this video, comment truth down below, and subscribe so you don't miss episode 3. Because the cover-up wasn't an accident, it was the plan.